define what podcasting is. It's a digital medium consisting of an episodic series of audio subscribed to and downloaded through web syndication or streamed online to a computer or mobile device. My why is that New York has TV, Hollywood has movies, podcasting, plus it's a really great place to live. My biggest why is my little growing podcaster Sedona, and coming from a big factory family, I've already planned to buy the house next door so she can move in when she's growing up there. But we actually run the Florida Podcast Association. I started it 2 years ago. This is the most active podcasting association in the country. We do our meetings at McAllister's Deli across the International Mall. We get people from all over the state of Florida. This is our last meeting last week. We can't fit people in the room anymore, so we're looking for a bigger space. But we come together second Tuesday of every month at 6:30 p.m., helping people monetize their ideas via podcasting to grow their businesses or whatever niche it is that they have. Out of that, we started PodFest Multimedia Expo. It's a conference for podcasters, digital influencers, change makers who want to grow their brand and audience and maximize their income. So I want to attract people to Florida. Well, having the Florida Podcast Association helps people in Florida, which is great. Ecological gardening, that's our first step. Second step is let's create a conference that attracts people from all over the world to see what's going on and bring everybody together. This conference has been going on for 4 years now in the Bay Area. This year we've moved into Orlando because we really want to attract people from all over the world and really bring it internationally. The majority of people are from the Bay Area that attend this conference. So this was our logo last year. This year we're very pleased to say that we landed Libsyn. Libsyn, for those who don't know, is the largest hosting of audio in the world. One out of every 4 podcasters uses Libsyn as their back office. They're now our presenting sponsor. Here's some of the homegrown podcasts right here in Florida. Now Hear This. This is an entertainment show. This is someone that talks to people that are up-and-coming artists, musicians. His name is Bruce Wozniak. In West Florida, Steven Silverman and Eric Odom, they own one of the largest commercial real estate brokerage firms in the Tampa Bay area. They actually created a podcast that allows people that want to invest in Florida to listen to what's going on in our markets, which is really a good play on them. If you're a speaker or comedian, you almost need a podcast to communicate with your audience and build on it. Cheryl Nicholson is a speaker, so she has good life balance. But since then, we've launched the Drone Radio Show. We've launched the Balancing Point Dancing Network. This is a dancing network for classical dancers. Cash Flow Guys. Tyler is here in Pinellas County. It's one of the largest real estate podcasts in the world. Make It Snappy Productivity Show. That's a huge niche within the space. The Colon Cancer Podcast. This is the first podcast where someone with cancer talks about the effects of cancer and how to live healthy. There's a lot of clinical podcasts from hospital groups, but this is one of the first from a human being talking about how you can help yourself and get better. Medicare Nation, first podcast in Medicare. This is all happening in the Tampa Bay area. St. Pete, Tampa, all of your local business owners are doing this. One of my favorite, Denicia Hilton launched Sisters of Flow. Her tagline is Let's Cycle Together. She has Menstrual Mondays and Flow Fridays. And then the Drone Show within its first year hit 100,000 downloads. Many of these shows are exploding onto the scene because they're the first to market, but there's room for many more. So this, Randy Goes, by the way, is the city planner for the city of Tampa. This is a hobby that he's doing. And now he is the press, he gets press passes for all these drone races. I think that's one of the things in our community we need to look to is like drone races, these gaming conferences, but this is what will put this area on the cutting edge. These are some of the veteran podcasters that we found live here that I didn't know before we started Florida Podcast. We have the top running podcast in the world, Mojo Running. Debbie Boyles runs a running group here, and she has a podcast that has hundreds of thousands of downloads. EDM Producer Podcast. EDM stands for Electronic Dance Music. These are the DJs that are making 60 to 100 million a year. People find it hard to believe, but they're the musicians of our day. Horses in the Morning, one of my favorite, largest network around the husbandry of horses in the world. 8 different shows. He does a daily morning show, has broken over 7 figures in ad revenue. Number one question many of you are asking is how do you monetize the podcast? I always have to answer that. But he is the one that has pioneered and helped many of us grow. He's out of Ocala. Glenn the Geek comes down to our meetings. He started about 7 years ago. This is an interesting one. Maura has Maura For You, Happy Inside Out. She's here in Pinellas County. And she has a podcast that's 2 or 3 minutes long, but she became a professional podcast guest. So she wound up being interviewed on 100 different podcasts. Her career took off as a speaker and presenter in Eastern Europe, of all places. So she's the top speaker in Greece, Serbia, Croatia, to these MBA programs. And this is, she put this picture up on Facebook, and she couldn't be at our monthly meeting. She's like, guys, I'm really sorry I want to be there, but I'm in, she was in at this point, she was teaching at a business school, MBA students in Zagreb, Croatia. Pretty amazing stuff. So here are the podcasts we're attracting. Lily Wang's largest podcaster in China. Her podcast is in Mandarin as well as English. She has over 25 million downloads. Michelle Hamilton, Meditation Minis. Meditation is huge. Health and wellness is huge. People can't get enough of this content. 2.5 million downloads. She's coming in from Columbus, Ohio. Congressional Dish, one of the first political podcasts that does not have a political bias, that talks about the bills that are being passed and what's in them, fully supported by the listeners. She gets 8,000 to 10,000 downloads. Her name is Jennifer Brenny. Her listeners give money to Patreon and support. Ben Franklin's World is a historical podcast that a professor out of Boston started. Hit 1 million downloads in her first year. Pre-Med Years is a doctor that decided not to practice medicine, but to help other doctors to start a network in podcasting. Trivial Warfare is a trivial one. These are two of my favorites. Brain Science podcast. Ginger Campbell will be at PodFest. Over 3 to 5 million downloads about brain science. This is the craziest one, and then I'll wrap up since we're at the end of time. This is a podcast called Sleep With Me. This is a person that decided he had a talent because he would read bedtime stories to his girlfriends and put them to sleep. So he now has the top podcast in the world, putting people to sleep. Something he does shuts your brain off, literally. He's going to put anything out of the world. But he gets close to 250,000 downloads or more per episode. So anyways, thank you. I'm waiting for the last question. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was here for a different one. Yes, go ahead.
First question after the first question.
Oh, okay.
So, do the podcasters have a YouTube channel?
I'm a big proponent of audio because it's a lot easier. YouTube, unless you have a full setup, a switcher, it's a little bit more production. You can do YouTube. I recommend audio because it's a lot easier to get started. What I'm showing you is audio. Some of them do have YouTube, but unless like Joe Rogan, he's got a nice set, and he's got a switcher, which is a person working on the scene. I like audio because you can start by yourself. You could hire a person that does editing, and you can get started almost within a week. Yes, question over there.
So with podcasting being very digital, what exactly are you doing besides like your monthly meetings to get people to actually move to this area?
The conference is one of them, and I think if our area is successful, we've launched 100 podcasts locally. We become like a beacon in the country of like, why are all these people coming out of Tampa Bay? And word spreads, because remember, they're all talking to 10 to 20 to 50,000 people per episode. Like my wife, she's podcasting out of our home, Biz Women Rock, one of the largest networks for business women in the world, and she's consulting women all over the world, and they're always like, oh, I want to come to Tampa. And I think if people visit Tampa Bay, look at St. Pete. I mean, we were at Art Walk this past Friday. This place is booming. People don't know what's going on in St. Pete. So our goal is to bring them here, and then they can choose to move. We actually had someone move just recently because they were on a cruise with all of us. And I said, what was your decision? He said, because of the people I met on the cruise. I started like kidding around. I go, what was the other decision? He goes, no, that was the primary decision why I moved to Tampa. You moved in Palm Harbor. Let's go to the right, then I'll come around the gallery. Go ahead, Sean.
So St. Pete College is either developing or has developed
Absolutely. Susan Yard,
podcasting program. Are they connected in with you guys?
Yeah, they actually contacted us before they developed the program. They asked us for certain experts. They also started a drone program at the same time. They asked Randy for some information. So yeah, we've actually visited and helped with the curriculum and kind of guided them. This is for the monetization question. Was my next slide. I just want to make sure you guys get it. AdvertiseCast just launched. You could actually place your own ads on niche podcasts. So this is the age of the influencer. Now you could ride the wave with these starting budding podcasters growing. So this is just a cross-section of influencers. Literally, you could bid on ads and put ads on their network. My good friend Trevor Smithland will be at PodFest talking about how he created this 6 months ago. It is the fastest growing site in that niche. He also has it for YouTubers, but right now podcasting is what's really hot. Let's go around the back. So let's go to the first question. Everybody, go ahead.
Can you explain just kind of generally the business model for each of these individual podcasters?
What's really cool with the on-demand content, there is no one business model that works. So we have a guy that has the Private Club radio podcast, and it's, by the way, some of them put radio in because people 2 years ago we'd have to explain for like the first half. I'd have to sit here just talk about what a podcast is. He has a marketing firm that caters to golf clubs. So his monetization is getting them as clients or becoming a consultant or speaker. There's other people that, if you want to just monetize your downloads, it's cost per thousand. So it's called CPM, cost per milieu, which is a French word that means thousand. You could bid anywhere from $25 to $60 for a 30-second spot. So let's say you have 1,000 downloads per episode, and you release an episode once a week. If I want to put an ad on it, it could cost anywhere from $25 to $60. Now, if you have very niche content, which we have, some of our podcasts have very niche content, we have 500 downloads. Some of them get up to $3,000 per episode because they're the only ones in the world that have that content, and the advertisers will pay a premium to get in front of them. There's a guy that has a beer podcast. It's kind of crazy stuff. Yes.
Say, I'm sorry. I've tried to contact the podcast broadcast, and off the internet, I don't see any contact information on them. I see the story and all this in the archive. What's the best way to contact them? And also, is Skype the primary mechanism?
Many of them that do interviews will use Skype, and they record
Anything else besides that?
Skype is the primary unless you do it in person or you have a recorder. The way to contact them, if you go to the iTunes store, there is a link to their websites usually, and you can go to their website. There's usually a contact form or a social media. Some of them do it, many of them do it as a hobby. The people we cater to are not. They're monetizing. About 50% of our audience that come to our monthly meeting are monetizing in some way, shape, or form. The guy that has a colon cancer podcast has 4 advertisers already. This is all within the last year or two. So all of our people are monetizing. My wife makes 5 figures a month because of her podcast. But they're very passionate about what they're doing, and they've built an immense amount of goodwill within their community and audience. So it wasn't like it happened by chance. These people breathe it, they love it, they want to really help other people. Yes?
So, are you familiar with Radiotopia?
I'm not.
It's a network of podcasts,
Yep.
and they're trying to do the same thing that you're talking about setting up sort of a place for people to do it. And they have about 5 of the top 20 podcasts on iTunes. And what they've done is they've actually made a podcasting studio that all of their major podcasts produce out of. But anyone can come in Oakland and come in and do that. Maybe something worth considering, that giving all these folks that don't have any of the resources they need to take their podcasting and their production up, they have a spot where you just come in and rent for per hour.
We've been working with a lot of different programs. I'm going to have to probably raise capital and do it myself, because when you work with government entities, they want to help, but it takes a long time to set certain things up. I am familiar with networks. I just want to bless you. I want to be very clear. There's a lot of podcast networks coming up. And just so you all know, the money that a lot of people are making is in the psychographics. So what that means is, like, I'll give you an example. There's Star Trek podcasts. There's like 40 Star Trek podcasts out there. Probably 100, I don't know. There's a lot of Star Trek podcasts. There's a guy that was really smart that said many of these people don't know how to monetize. But if I take 40 of them, it's the same psychographic person that listens to these kind of podcasts. So they created the Star Trek network, where then he goes gets advertisers, takes 20% off the top, then places it across all the networks. So there's a lot of different networks coming up. That's a great idea. We do need to do that locally, if anyone knows of anyone. We are passing around, if you want to get more information about PodFest, sheets. My goal is to grow PodFest into the largest audio content conference in the world. And we're on our way. We're going to hit 500 people in Orlando next month. And then from there, I'd like to hit 2,000. It's scaling much quicker, so because audio is growing on demand. Very much like YouTube and video. Radio took a longer time because Bluetooth and all that took a while to displace the radio. Yes?
So I've been a hardcore podcast listener since 2005. And I've seen a lot of the of networks come and go and attempt to do not what you're trying to do, but what.
No, but I'm familiar with what you're talking about. I've heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's mixed. Right?
Yep.
There are some that have been around for a while.
Yep.
Corolla has one that's pretty successful, I think. But I guess what I wanted to ask you is to rip on Patreon for a while, because that seems to be the big one that people are monetizing. It's not a podcast network per se, but I actually donate about 4 Patreons to podcasts. I'm just wondering.
Can you share what 4 podcasts you contribute to?
A couple of Tesla podcasts. Allison Rosen is your new best friend. Yeah,
but you really have to do a good job of building your community.
right.
So that's where it comes to. So this guy would sleep with me, has 2,200 people all over the world that are contributing to him because he puts them to sleep. And the funny part,
Ginger will put you to sleep too, but she has.
yeah, but she has to sleep with me. But the funny part with the sleep with me guy is I went to his Patreon page, and in the video he says, I need this money to improve audio quality. However, you'll probably be asleep by the time you hear the quality I've improved. That's very ironic and funny. But he's serving a purpose in that he's helping people with anxiety and stress that need to shut their brain off. Literally, his stories don't make any sense. They don't go anywhere. It's about a guy named Scoot. Scoot, I don't know what he does, where he goes, but it literally shuts your brain off the way he does it. And this is one of the top podcasts in the world. But this guy started as a hobby. He's like, I have this talent, let me see what happens. And it kind of hit big for him 2-3 years down the road. Yes, sir.
So, obviously they're the big, or at least the podcast I listen to, the big advertisers like the Casper mattresses.
Yeah, it's all the same advertising all.
So, presumably, they caught on pretty quick to the value of podcasting.
Extremely quick. It's way ahead of all the other corporate sponsors.
So, are they, potential sponsors for your conference, but also they probably have a vested interest in the quality of podcasts and more podcasts with more listeners, because that's their milieu. Are you in contact with them? Do they support podcasts, or do they just come in when somebody gets X number?
A lot of more of the tools, and Patreon called me. They want to be part of next year, so they are calling us, and they do want to. They want 2 big conferences in the country. There's one called Podcast Movement. It's a great conference. It's in LA. We're on this coast, so they're supporting me because they want to see this grow. So yeah, they're actually active in that. Now, as far as let me give you guys a landscape on monies in podcasting. 2 years ago, I started like 2013 talking about it because I saw the trend. The listeners were really jumping on board, and these shows were exploding. So in 2014, I think there was maybe $25 million of those companies you talked about spending on podcasts. Audible, big one too. In 2015, it jumped to 50 million. And last year, it's well over 150 million. That's still peanuts compared to the billions that's spent on radio. So that shift will overtake because the TV is becoming the radio. The radio will be extinct because it's getting replaced by podcasting. Unless you have another theory, let me know after. I'd love to hear it. But my father-in-law uses the TV during the holidays, playing the fireplace on there while we're opening presents. The TV people play music on, or you want to watch a big live event. Other than that, the phone is where it's at. So I don't see, radio stations are transferring to podcasts like NPR and stuff, and they're very smart doing so. Yes?
What's your angle, Chris? Is this volunteer work for you? Or are you just
great
doing this
question. So what I do full time is I build Tampa Bay business owners right here in the local area. I've done over 1,500 events. I also run the largest media e-marketing groups over the years. So I've been very active in this community. Podcasting is something I found through doing these meetups from all over the Bay Area that my angle is, it gives me a lot of satisfaction to watch these podcasters affect a lot of lives. Down the road, I'm going to make money on the conference, but I don't know if anyone knows what it costs to put on a conference. I want you to think about a gallon of milk. Does anyone know what the going rate is for a gallon of milk? And we buy almond milk, whatever. Let's just say $5, which is very high, right? A gallon of coffee, the moment it goes inside, and this is a conference where it's $62 per gallon. It could go up to $162. So if you imagine the cost just from the gallon of fluid, that's $62. The costs are exorbitant. So my goal is to build this conference. You only make money on a conference once you hit scale. So next year, my hope is to hit scale. We've been incubating this here in Tampa Bay now for 4 years. So this is our 4th coming up. Yes?
What factors would be necessary to bring the conference to St. Pete specifically next year? What elements are you looking for as?
Well, last year I was going to bring it to St. Pete this year. The challenge is we negotiated with the hotel here in downtown in St. Pete, but the guarantee was over 6-figure money I had to guarantee. So that was a challenge economically. And I then went to Orlando just to check things out, and they're much more competitive. So eventually I'd love to bring it to St. Pete. I wanted to showcase downtown. My wife and I love downtown St. Pete.
So it's the hotel, is the...
It's economics, yeah. Because
is that the main factor? And I guess the follow-up question to that would
yes.
be, is there anybody in the community here in this room or otherwise that, knows, hey, there's a great event, potentially bring 2,000 people here next year, start that discussion early?
Yeah, I would love to, if anyone has anything. I will tell tell you that St. Pete, it was the most welcoming from the economic standpoint, incentive, they were very willing to do that. But yeah, if anyone knows, let me know. My goal is I'm going to go for 2,000, but let's say I hit 1,000, 1,500, still success. But we are looking to scale by 3, 4 from this year. This is the competitive advantage I have is very unique in that I've done 1,500 events here locally. Some of you might have been to them, some of you might not, but I know how to run an event. So the greatest compliment I get from these podcasters that fly in from different parts, they ask me this one question, they go, have you done events before? And I laugh, because I've done quite a few, but it means that they feel like, wow, it was really well done, they got to meet people. The number one thing they need, first off, is connectivity, so we work on that by creating a strategic alliance as our kickoff event. Yes, sir.
I just want to piggyback on Chris's point. Since St. Pete College is already connected with Unisport, St. Pete College has no shortage of facilities for this type of stuff, and presumably are.
Yeah, I'll talk to them. My challenge is just when attendees come, they kind of want to stay in the hotel and go down to the convention. So I have to figure out that flow of, maybe buses and stuff.
Not in St. Pete. They can walk. I mean, it's like,
From St. Pete College.
St. Pete College.
I got you. Well, I'll play with that option. Just I'm also dealing with attendees coming in from everywhere.
Yeah.
And convenience when it comes to conferences, they want to be in the same building. Yeah. The cool thing is we have the monthly meeting, second Tuesday of every month at 6:30. Look up on Meetup, the Florida Podcast Association. We're there. We only charge $10 for the meeting. For me, it's just a respect fee that people respect the information to come in. But every month we have someone talk about how they monetize, how they're using live streaming to grow their base from their audio. That's a big thing now. These people, by the way, are publishing their numbers. So if I were you, if you want to do some research, go to Advertise Cast. He says he has 16,000 downloads per show. He's telling you he has 200 downloads per show. David, who's coming to PodFest, he has 3,000 downloads per show. So they're actually telling you their numbers. So this is a nice little way to see what's going on. And they have arts, business, comedy, education. They have all kinds of niches going on here. I talked to Trevor. He said his problem is he's getting tons of content creators. Business people haven't caught on that this is the next, the big businesses have, but small businesses don't realize they have an advantage. They can find some of these characters that have built up amazing fan bases and following, and you can tap into that by partnering with them, helping them grow, and they'll help grow your brand. So I would look at it if you have something to sell, especially if you're service-based business. These people are building up audiences right now as we speak. Yes?
How do they build the communities, each one of them? It's just because people are interested in the topic, Google it, and then they show up, and that's how they know about it?
So you're asking how do they build their listener base?
Yeah.
So there's a couple ways. Some people do keyword rich. So if you happen to be the only subject matter in the iTunes store, you have an advantage because many people don't like reading and they're on the go, they want to listen. So right now the stat out there is for every one podcaster, there's 2,000 bloggers. So that needs to be filled in. By the way, there is no local like Tampa Tech podcast. These things have still not filled in yet. So over the next few years, that's the gold rush. There's a lot of geo-targeted podcasts have not been filled in yet around the country. So some of them keyword. Others it's just word of mouth because they're so good at what they do. They're on Twitter or Snapchat. They choose a social platform that they're comfortable with. My wife started Biz Women Rock 2 years ago. She was one of 2 women that started a business podcast for business women. You'd think there was like 10 already. So she built, because she was one of the few, has grown her base over 140,000 downloads. And what we did that was really smart was we siphoned that brand equity into a Facebook group. So she has 4,300 women in a private Facebook group that she communicates actively. And from there is where she gets a lot of her consulting, coaching, they buy her products, and she nurtured that community from her Facebook group. Yes?
I just want to say one thing about podcasting is that the most important thing about podcasting is consistency.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, and I'm going to tell you why.
Meaning put it out consistently.
I agree with
big numbers.
I agree with you 100% on one side, but I have seen podcasters break that rule, and they still do well. So I completely agree that, yes, consistency is the best way to grow, but I can't say that that's an absolute truth, because I've literally seen dozens of podcasters stop for months at a time, and they pick up and their audience is still there. A lot of it is because there's no one else in the space, so people will forgive that piece. It really is. There's no one else, so we can listen to.
They're not the big ones, though. The big ones do it every single.
Well, Joe Rogan, for instance, because it's on demand, he is consistent, but some days he'll miss a few days, you know, it's within reason. It's not like radio where you gotta be online and unless you set that standard for your audience. So I do agree on one side. I'm just saying on the other side, I see people break the rules and you're still okay. I used to think it was an absolute truth, so I just want to make sure that you can still get started and you fumble a little bit, and by the time you figure out a year later, you still have a head start because you started and you have some kind of audience that listens to you. Yes?
My wife is the director of technology at a local high school here, and she's really pushing forward on the cutting edge of creating makerspace and all these different technology advancements. I'd love to team up with her because it sounds like a good program.
Deal. I'm there. I mean, this is, I live for this. It gives me, I mean, like when Lee Silverstein starts the colon cancer podcast, and this guy's getting emails every week. Thank you for telling me that there's another option. My dad had colon cancer. And what do most people do? They can't even hear the words out of the doctor's mouth. It's just like Charlie Brown, right? But you have a podcast, you don't want, sometimes you don't want to talk to your spouse, you don't want to talk to anybody, you just shut the world out. Well, a lot of them listen to Lee, and it's like, it's very non-aggressive, and he's changing the world, so it gives me a lot of satisfaction, because there's so many different niches that people could help. Denise Hilton with the Sisters of Love, she has to make it funny because it's an uncomfortable topic, okay? When you ask her, why did you start this? It's because women in today's day and age are getting prescribed hysterectomies at a record rate in their 20s and 30s. So she's like on a mission. She's like, if you look at the medical, and there's other solutions than hysterectomy. But when they go to the doctor, sometimes, eventually that's what they're getting prescribed. Yes?
So Chris, how can we as a group help you move forward?
Honestly,
Specifically bringing your conferences.
well, yeah, with the conference, I have the sheet if you can sign up, but if you could tell people that we have an active, emerging podcasting community right here in the Bay Area and come to the meetings. We hold it right by the veterans because we have a lot of people that come from Brooksville and Ocala, so we try and make it triangulated, but it's once a month. And people come from all over the area. If you can attend or be part of it, that's a big thing. Let them know that there's a Florida Podcast Association where 40 to 50 active content creators come together. If you're a beginner, first thing I do is I marry you with someone that knows how to do it, they walk you through it, and the community is just very helpful because this is an emerging medium, so everybody's like really excited about it. So I thank you for that question. And I'm just excited about what we're doing here in Florida, and I'm excited about the Renaissance in St. Pete. I'm excited for Tampa to catch up and have a whole uniform area. But yeah, thank you for having me, guys.
I'll keep it short. Thanks to our presenters. We do need more presenters for the weeks ahead. So please do us a favor.